Good afternoon, Anna.
Yes, good afternoon. The sunshine has come out, I'm glad to report. So it's a nice way to start, better than the hail that we had this morning. So
Definitely. Well, I think by the end of the last one, I thought we were done for the day, but of course we had our 4:15 as well, which I'd forgotten about, and I'm delighted that we have it because we have some fantastic guests joining us today.
ew, yes.
Let's welcome them in, Christina and Michelle. Good to see you both.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hello.
So it's been another long day at the conference, and lots of things have been happening. You both have been presenting in the same session. So Michelle, tell us a bit about how that went. How was it for you?
I thought it was a really good session, and it was about new mitigation solutions. And I saw in a lot of the comments and questions that people wanted to know more about different options for developing countries and emerging economies. So I was really proud to represent some solutions that are available in the context of Rwanda.
Yeah, which is a fantastic perspective to bring into the conference. So how long have you been working with GGGI? Tell us a bit about that.
I joined in 2017, and I joined to the Rwanda country office, and we have about 40 different country offices around the world, and our headquarters is in Seoul, South Korea, and I've been based in Rwanda since I joined in 2017.
And yourself, Christina, could you tell us as well a little bit about where you are and what you're working in?
Hi, yes, I'm in Cambridge, currently at the University of Cambridge. And I'm a PhD student with the MRC Epidemiology Unit, and my research focuses on evaluating sustainable transport and to suggest, hopefully, some solutions and design features for policymakers.
And were you presenting some of your research today, Christina?
I was, yeah. So today I was presenting on comparing different policies. So there's different ways to characterize them, and my research looked at carrots versus sticks or combined carrot and stick packages, policy packages.
And was that looking at any particular sort of location, or where's the research sort of being focused geographically?
Yeah, so we kept it quite broad. So we tried to include as many different contexts as possible, but we saw that most, unfortunately, of the research came from mostly higher income countries like the US or Europe. Definitely would love to see more research coming in from other contexts as well.
And yourself, Michelle, what kind of work and research are you doing over at the GGI?
Yeah, currently I'm working on a sustainable mobility project in Rwanda. And the work involves looking at e-mobility and policy options and options for reducing air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really interesting work. It's really varied. We're intergovernmental, so I'm embedded at the Ministry of Environment, and we work really closely with the government of Rwanda to develop different guidelines and to give recommendations on policies and policy analysis. So, and especially right now, working on NDC implementation. So the updated NDC for Rwanda was submitted in May of 2020. So we're really focused on that.
That sounds really cool. I think one of the questions that I really have is, what's it like on the ground in Rwanda? Is there a lot of electric vehicles going? What's the sort of present level of sort of saturation?
Yeah, we recently had an e-mobility technology showcase, and we had, I think, 7 different companies, and we had everything from motorcycles to cars to e-scooters and electric bicycles and even an electric truck. And there's more coming in. So they have electric plow coming in for farming. So, I mean, it's really the whole gamut for electric vehicles. And there's a lot of incentives in place for companies to delve into the market in Rwanda that were put into place by the government of Rwanda.
That's quite amazing. Here in the UK, I know there's trying to be a big push for electric vehicles, and it came up in sessions this morning talking about transportation and trying to work out, how can we use greener technologies in order to go forwards with electric cars, for instance, and then the cost of things currently and how they could be, how we could make greener, energies cost effective or even cheaper than the current dirty ones that we're currently using, so a lot of push to do that. So it's great to hear that Rwanda is at the forefront in your country right now doing this. It's a really good and interesting push forwards.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the price comparison, because you have price parity between the motorcycles and the electric motorcycles, but then larger vehicles like the trucks and the buses, those are a little harder. So there's more incentives that need to be in place in order to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. Christina, I wonder, how did you get into this subject? What sort of led you into this world?
Yeah, so it's kind of long-winded, but basically I grew up in Florida, and we're not really known for our transport besides driving. So when I moved to Chicago for my undergrad university education, I was exposed to the world of public transportation, and they also have public bike sharing programs like Divvy bikes. And then, so I hadn't thought about it then. I was interested more so in urban health. And then I moved to France to do a master's in public health, to Paris, and they also have a great different alternatives to driving. And it wasn't until I worked in the OECD and working on a project looking at how public transportation can increase physical activity levels that I really got interested in learning more about, or basically focusing on alternatives to driving as my research focus.
That's great. And how about you, Michelle? How have you found, your way into where you are now? How have you found that interest growing?
It's growing a lot, and part of our work is to increase awareness and also sensitize different mobility operators to electric vehicles. Right now, we're working on electric bus study, and we're working with bus operators in the city of Kigali. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a really interesting environment to work in because you have low purchasing power in order to purchase like individual cars, but at the same time, there's a lot of government incentives to set up charging infrastructure and to convert vehicles and do the transition to electric vehicles in all vehicle types. So it's really exciting. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's really varied. So I'm really enjoying it.
And as you both will know, this Climate Expo is developed partly through the connection of universities in the UK, 70 universities working together to build interest, capacity awareness ahead of COP26. And we kind of like to ask people what they hope for COP26. And obviously for many people involved, it's a long game that we're playing. So whilst we hope for short-term wins, we also need to look at the long term. But Christina, what do you think are sort of priorities for COP26 for this year?
Definitely. I think even just having this opportunity to have this conference in the first place, connecting science with policy, is a great way to bring science at the forefront of the climate change conversation. And yeah, I think definitely that connection needs to be strengthened, also particularly after the whole COVID-19 experience and how scientists and opinions and the expertise of scientists were really helpful in forming national guidelines to approaching issues like COVID-19. We can learn from this and bring the same kind of energy and connections to climate change, which is another huge issue that we're facing.
It's interesting you say that as well, because I was just in the public support for climate change session just before we've come live here, and actually it was interesting to see the research that had been done by various institutions to have a look at what it is that people want to engage with in terms of climate change, what they're doing, so they're understanding things like recycling, or that they might need to use less energy in their homes, and so those were two of the main ones, but they were less sure about how they could change their diet, or didn't feel it was accessible, or they didn't know how to maybe use transport in a better way, or they've decided they're not going to go on as many flights, when obviously because we've been grounded for a long time, it is actually something that was easy to give up. But whereas when it comes to food, it's a bit more of a home comfort. So they were looking at the different things that have impacted through the studies, what it is that we can help others engage with, and how we can make it more accessible. So in your opinions, what would you like to see, or what are you doing yourselves in terms of like trying to be making a change?
So maybe Michelle, we start with you with that one.
Yes, sorry.
I mean, on a personal level, I think just part of it is joining events like this. And the presentation that I did earlier was really an idea that I had back in 2019. And a lot of times I feel as though the climate action conversation can be often limited, and people think, oh, it's a least developed country. We won't think about those technology options here. But that's one of the things I really like working about with my organization, is that we really try to think about bold and transformative ideas, not only within our work but also in terms of what we do personally. So being part of an event like this, it's stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit, but at the same time I feel like everyone should do their part in whatever capacity that they can in order to affect change.
And are there ways people can work with GGGI? Michelle, what could people do if they found your organization? How can they get involved?
Absolutely. I mean, for new member countries, we're expanding. We're expanding to different countries, especially in West Africa and other regions of the world. So, I mean, if there's an interest from a national government perspective, then countries can request to join. And also, just in terms of public awareness, we do different types of events. So feel free to reach out to the country representative as the first point of contact. And then it can go down to project managers like myself. If someone's interested in sustainable mobility in Rwanda, please feel free to contact me. We love hearing new ideas and new opportunities to do also community awareness, but also capacity building and things of that nature.
Great. Same question to Christina. How can people help you do what you're doing, Christina?
My research focuses on how I can help people choose sustainable transport alternatives. Basically, there's several ways to go about it. And my research looks more at the built environment factors that can make it easier for people to choose walking and cycling or public transport over driving, such as through building new cycle lanes, or taking away space from traffic and dedicating that to pedestrians by widening sidewalks. Or we can also look at it through policies such as congestion charging. So there are different ways through the environment, both built and through policies, that we can help influence behavior.
Yes, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? We know that there needs to be change, but sometimes changing our behavior and habits can actually be a really almost like big challenge in itself, when it's, like I said earlier, people aren't as willing to, they're happy to ditch the plastic packaging and not choose that option. But when it comes to maybe having that hamburger that they really want on a Friday night that they've worked for all week, I think that, they're less likely to give up things like that. So starting with things that are accessible, like transport, for instance, if you can get to something much more sustainable that's local, or just use your own bicycle. It's a great way to start.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think it was all about that sort of personal thought process. I think I was speaking to someone recently and said even just sort of beginning to think about these things is the first step. And certainly there are so many things that you can do. And one of them is to actually join this new campaign that we've launched this week, the Act Now film campaign, which is a wonderful way for young people 18 to 30 years old to share their story about what they care about. And hopefully this will be something that can reach the leaders of COP26 later in the year to give the sense of what it really feels like to live through this need for climate action. So I think we will wrap things up. But thank you so much to Michelle and to Christina for joining us. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
bye-bye.
you.
Welcome.
Right.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
In November 2021, the UK will host the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties in Glasgow, also known as COP26. The COP26 summit will bring together international government negotiators, decision makers, and policy makers to discuss how they should accelerate action towards stopping climate change. From small island states to countries with rapidly growing urban areas, representatives from 197 countries are expected to join the summit. We, the young people living across the planet, have the opportunity to tell these decision makers why stopping climate change is important to us, the future generations, and everyone's voice matters.
So we're making a film, all of us. Please tell us what matters most and we'll bring your perspective into the frame. Tell us what is important to you and how leaders can change so that they can lead the change we want to see in our world. If you're 18 to 30 years old, submit your video on Twitter, Instagram, or Weibo of up to 2 minutes in high definition using the hashtag ActNowFilm.
Your video submission should include the following points: your first name and country, why is climate change important to you, what do you think is the most important change that needs to be addressed in climate change, are you a part of any group or organization, if so, where is it and what does it do, what pledge will you take to address climate change, and what would you most like to say to the global decision makers at COP. For more details, please follow on Instagram, Twitter, or Weibo, where you will find everything you need.
Here's your chance to show the negotiators what action you are already taking and what action you'd like them to take.